Well, shalom and welcome back. We're going to continue our study of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, and we are still in Siman 1, and we're up to part 4 of Siman 1, and we're looking at the laws of early morning conduct. And in our previous lesson, we looked at the very first moments of awaking from sleep, and where are our thoughts to be focused at that moment, and what are the first things that we utter? What are the first things that we're meant to utter when we awaken? And we wake up with a sense of gratitude to Hashem for waking us up. Now, a lot of you that might be watching this that are still quite young might tend to take a few things for granted. But as you get a bit older, the things that you took for granted for many years, like eyesight, hearing, the ability to sleep, have a good night's sleep, and even get things like going to the bathroom. As you get older, they become things that you take very much less for granted because they begin to deteriorate, and it doesn't become like such a routine as you get older. And I believe that's Hashem's way of enabling a person, if they live to a decent age, to begin to be humbled by their mortality. And rather than seeing old age as something that's has a negative impact on a person, old age is actually a blessing, and it should be looked upon as a time in a person's life where they can really get to a place of an appreciation for Hashem that they were never able to get to during their youth. We should be appreciative during our youth, but it's rarely done if we're being completely honest. But when one gets to an age where they begin to need assistance, begin to need the assistance not only of physical help but medications and things like that, your mindset starts to change and you start to think about really important things. And it's a shame that it takes that for you to start to really appreciate things that we do every day that we take for granted. And so studying the Torah and studying the Jewish mindset or the Hebrew mindset increases a person's sensitivity. And it's very important to always be attuned with your sensitivity, because the more that you allow that to get eroded and run down, the more you become insensitive to your connection with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. So the whole idea of being observant of Hashem's will and your service to Hashem, your avodat Hashem, is to heighten your sensitivity and your awareness, which inevitably brings with it an appreciation and a gratitude that brings with it great joy. Somebody who has a great sense of gratitude is someone that's always, as a proxy of that, is always joyful. Somebody who is sad, there is a vacuum or a void of gratitude. And so as we get older, we begin to realize, man, sight was something that I really took for granted. And so when we study the laws of early morning conduct, we're cycling through all this type of mindset as we think and the actions we do and what we say, as we get ready to build ourselves that foundation that is going to be with us for the rest of the day. Because a day is like a mini lifetime. You get up in the morning, you go through the day, the day goes into the middle of the day, then the day begins to subside, and then we lay ourselves down to sleep at night. So a day is like a mini lifetime, and if you can view it like that, you will do very well. So we like I said, we're up to Siman 1, and we're at part 4 of Siman 1. And just to quickly do a review, we looked at the concept of being aware of Hashem's presence always, from the moment that we wake up, and we wake up with the Modi Ani, I gratefully thank you. And then we think of our senses. We think of our eyes, our mouth, our ears, our nose, our sense of touch, and we think about how these are all blessings that we've been given from Hashem, and we should use them appropriately. And we just finished on part 3, where there was a metaphor given of having legs as swift as a deer and being as strong as a lion, and the explanations of what those metaphors allude to: legs that swiftly move you to walk away from evil, and a lion is having a heart as strong as a lion's, and the eyes of an eagle. We should have like an eagle's eye in terms of Torah and mitzvot, but also be quick to shut off our eyes when we behold anything evil. And so part 4 continues: therefore a person must strengthen himself like a lion, and immediately upon awaking from his sleep, and having said Modi Ani, he should arise with alacrity for the service of Hashem. May he be blessed and exalted. Before the evil inclination overcomes him with arguments and excuses to convince him not to arise. So the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, will begin its attack on you from the very first moments you begin to awaken out of sleep. And what does the Yetzer Hara do? It says that you should just stay in bed for another 10 minutes or another 20 minutes. And it has all sorts of arguments that it begins to array against you, like there's no possible way you can get up now, it's too cold, and you didn't get a good night's sleep, and it's so comfortable and warm inside this womb of your doona and your fluffy pillow. Why go outside when you can stay in bed, ring up your boss, call in sick, and sleep in until midday, and thus putting you in a position where you're playing catch up for the rest of the day. And so it starts straight away by going through these arguments in your mind. And when you hear that, when you can hear yourself convincing you to stay in bed for a little bit longer, that is you hearing the Yetzer Hara in live time beginning to work its acts of destruction in your life. And so that's why it's there, to enable you to strengthen yourself and propel yourself away from it and become a mighty person in your avodat, in your service of Hashem. And so it's that resistance that is there for a reason. For example, the evil inclination will approach him with cunning to convince him to remain in bed in the winter by saying, how can you arise now so early in the morning when the cold is still so great? And during the summer it will attempt to convince him by telling him, how can you arise from your bed when you have not yet had your full sleep? Or with other similar arguments, for the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination knows very well how to ensnare people in traps from which they cannot break free. Therefore, a conscientious Jew who fears and trembles to obey the word of Hashem must overpower his evil inclination and not listen to it. And even if arising in the morning would actually be difficult due to sluggishness or laziness, he should set his objective, the fulfillment of the will of the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, and to assist him in this battle, he should take to heart the fact that if a person were to summon him for some lucrative business deal or to collect a debt, if someone were to call him to save his property from an impending loss, such as if a fire were to break out in the city or the like, certainly he would manage to arise immediately with alacrity because of his affection for his money, and he would not be neglectful. Similarly, if he were required to go somewhere for the service of a king, he would arise with alacrity, and he would not be neglectful, lest he be accursed of neglecting his duties, or he would rise speedily so as to find favor in the eyes of the king. So this is one of the sort of more baseline arguments that you can turn around and aim back at the Yetzer Hara and deflect. And it is a low level of rebuttal, but it is still a valid rebuttal as well, and insightful enough to have you think, yeah, well, I would get up early for my job, which starts maybe at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have to get out of bed by 6. Then why am I not getting out of bed now? It's the weekend. When I don't have anywhere I need to be, I'm just going to sleep in. And so the motivation for getting up for a job to earn money you see very quickly and starkly that it outweighs your motivation to getting up to do service of Avodat Hashem, to getting up in the morning to pray. And so the opposite should be the case, that your desire and your motivation and your affection should be fixated more greatly on your desire to get up to pray and to learn and to make a connection with Hashem, more than your desire to go out and earn money or go out and collect a debt or receive a payment or do something to protect your material property or something like that. So these are the things you have to think about and really be honest with yourself about, and say to yourself, well, okay, I'm not doing very well if I'm getting out of bed for material things, but when it comes to getting out of bed and spending time with Hashem in prayer, I'm not as motivated. I'm not as I seem to be lazy about that. So you just have to start being honest with yourself and really having a hard look at yourself and saying, where am I really holding? Where are my real priorities? I can say all this awesome stuff to impress people, but at the end of the day, when nobody's watching, who's going to care if I lay in bed for another half an hour, another 2 hours, or whatever? But that's really the litmus test to see if you're genuine, when nobody will ever find out, except you and Hashem, and it's just you and the Kadesh Baruch Hu. Okay, so how much more so for the service of the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, should a person take care to arise with speed and alacrity. Moreover, if someone accustoms himself to this course of arising immediately 4 or 5 times, it will not be difficult for him thereafter. Furthermore, one who attempts to purify, i.e. improve himself, is helped by Hashem. Part 5. If it is possible for one to arise early at midnight and then recite the Tikkun Katzot, the Tikkun Katzot means the midnight repair and consists of various readings of the Book of Lamentations, and is a great. King David got up at midnight, for example, but if you're not quite as enthusiastic as that, you can get up at later hours earlier in the morning to do that, and be a partaker of Tikkun Katzot. This is most meritorious, as it is stated in it says Ikar, but that's Lamentations 2:19. Arise, cry out at night, at the beginning of the watch shifts, etc. This practice is similar to that of the Holy One, blessed be He, who laments over the destruction of the temple at that time, as the verse states in Jeremiah 25:30. Hashem calls out from on high, and from His holy dwelling he raises His voice, and He calls out over His destroyed palace, and He proclaims, Woe unto my children, for due to their sins I have destroyed my house, and I have burned my sanctuary. I have exiled them among the nations, according to Tractate Barakot 3a. If, however, it is not possible for him to arise at midnight, he should at least strive to arise before the first rays of dawn. As King David of blessed memory said in Tehillim 57:9, I will awake in the morning, meaning I will awake in the morning will not awaken me. And after midnight as well, one can recite Tikkun Katzot, the midnight repair. After recitation of the Tikkun Katzot, one should engage in the study of Torah, each individual according to his ability, with a session in Mishnah taking precedence over his studies. And through this study of the Mishnah, one can merit fulfillment of the soul. For the Hebrew letters of the word Mishnah are the same as those for the Neshama, the Hebrew word for soul. If one is not capable of studying Mishnah, he should recite Psalms, Maimadot. When the temple stood and sacrifices were offered, it would be fitting for the owner to be present at the time of his sacrifice, that the sacrifice was offered. This applied to communal offerings as well. Of course, however, it would be possible for all Jews, joint owners of the communal offering, to be in daily attendance at the temple. Therefore, the prophets instituted the Mamadot. Under this system, the nation was divided into 24 groups, and representatives from each group were present for all communal offerings. on a rotating basis. Additionally, within each town, representatives of the group whose turn it was to be in the temple would gather and recite specific portions of Torah. See Tanis 26a for the listing called Mamadot. It has remained a custom among some people to recite those portions of the Torah daily. So I was just reading the footnote for that, just in case you weren't aware of what that term is, that Mamadot, what it actually is. But it's like a rotational basis reading of Tehillim that communities would partake in. Now I've lost my place. Here we are. A lesser amount of prayer or study recited with concentration is preferred over a greater amount. So a lesser amount of study and prayer is recited with kavana, that is spiritual concentration, is preferred over a greater amount said without concentration. Rabbi Kia taught, whoever engages in Torah study at night merits the divine presence, as stated in Echa, in Jeremiah. Arise, sing out at night, at the beginning of the watch shifts, pour out your heart like water in the presence of Hashem, and that is also referenced in Tractate Tamid 32b. This verse means to teach us that then, when a person is studying Torah at night, the divine presence is with him. Our sages of blessed memory said in Zohar Bereshit 136 that whoever studies Torah at night is called a servant of Hashem, as King David stated in Tehillim 134:1. All the servants of Hashem who stand in the house of Hashem during the nights. See further Siman 71, so that's a bit further through. Even during the short summer nights, when it is not possible to arise so early, at the minimum he should strengthen himself to arise while there will still be enough time to ready himself to go to the synagogue to pray with the congregation. And we'll leave it there. And so next lesson will be part 6, the final part of Siman 1, laws of early morning conduct. So getting up early in the morning, before the dawn, before the sun rises, and learning or reciting Tehillim, reciting Psalms, is a very powerful act, because the early hours of the morning when most people are asleep and it's still dark, is a time where there's a stillness about that time. There's the phone generally doesn't ring, streets are quiet, there's no sound, not even birds chirping, and everybody else is in a state of slumber. They're asleep, except you. Everyone else is asleep, you're awake. And not only are you awake, but you are attempting to make a connection with Hashem during those small hours. And so there's malakim that are designated over certain geographical areas, and they watch over those areas. And somebody in an area that is getting up while everybody else slumbers and begins to recite Tehillim, for example, can get the attention of that angel, and it can have a huge impact. The value of learning and the value of praying in those small hours sets you apart, and from the very outset puts you in a position of being ahead of the pack, so to speak. So if you can begin to accustom yourself to get up very early. Most people stay up late, and ultimately, as children, we all wanted to stay up late, and our parents put us to bed early. And when we enter into adulthood, we kind of want to like go, "Wow, I can stay up late now." It's like, wow, what a privilege. But we think that we're going to miss out on something. Ultimately, there's a sense that we all have that if we go to bed early, we're going to miss out on something. You're not going to miss out on anything. In fact, if you go to bed early and you get up, you go to bed early and you get up early, or you go to bed late and you get up late, you will miss out on something. It's a guarantee. You will be forever playing catch up for the rest of the day. I don't know if you've ever noticed, when you get up late in the day, The rest of the day is a type of catch up, and so that's the reality. So the Yetzer Hara is trying to reverse the reality. So perhaps maybe consider going to bed earlier, having an earlier evening routine, and subsequently getting up earlier. You're still getting those hours of wakefulness, but you're now being the first, or one of the first. There could be many other people getting up at that hour, who knows, but generally speaking, most people don't get up at the wee hours of the morning. But you're setting yourself ahead of the pack by doing that, and especially by doing that and imbuing it with learning, imbuing it with prayer. And you become the person that ushers in the dawn. The dawn doesn't usher you in. You wake up and you see that slit of light through the window, and you go, oh, it's morning, and the morning's woken you up. Okay, so that's all we'll look at for the moment. Next video, we'll just look at the last part, and then we'll get into Siman 2, which is the laws of the morning, Netilat Yadayim, that is the washing of hands, which is a fascinating custom to do, or observance to do. So hopefully you can join me for that one next time. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful to you. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and maybe give me some feedback. And thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.